working on a typewriter there or computer. Anyway, let's get this started, and I want to thank everyone for joining us for the first ever, that I'm aware of anyway, SMPS National Committee Leaders Orientation. We just have a few things that we're going to do to get started, and Kevin, if you're out there, I'm going to ask you just for a few words to thank everybody and to welcome them to the program.
Can you hear me okay?
I can. I have you and Brad and Holly, by the way, unmuted.
Excellent. Well, I am definitely out there. I love the way you said that. I am out here, as are all of you, and it is a great start to this SMPS fiscal year. It was great to see many of you in Chicago, and if I personally did not, I certainly hope to very soon. But on behalf of the entire board, especially those who could not be on the call today, want to welcome you to this new year and say a very special thank you to the volunteer roles that you have agreed to take on. I was just down at the Central Florida chapter about a week ago, and I had a wonderful opportunity to speak to them for about an hour at lunchtime at one of their events. And one of the first things I wanted to mention to them, which I'll mention to you now, is that I really believe SMPS is a great place to be right now. I know things are still very tough out there, and there's a lot of unknowns in our industry, but to be associated with such a strong organization, not just as a member, but as a volunteer and an active participant in the leadership of our committee structure, I really think it's a great place to be, and I hope that you will feel the same way at the end of your term in whichever place you're serving right now. If you think about it, the fact that we're doing one of these webinars, it had to happen for the first time at some point, but we're doing these to help improve the communications at all levels for the operations of the society. And when growth happens, we have to do it new ways. We have webinars and conference calls, and I think it's very exciting that we are doing this, and certainly kudos to Tina and her team for making this kind of thing happen. One more comment, and then we can move on. This volunteering thing is an incredible gift that you're bringing to the society. Obviously, you're not getting paid, most likely at all, unless there's something I don't know about. This is a commitment of your time, and you certainly are coming to the relationship with expectations of something in return, as we all do from our volunteer efforts. But most importantly, there's a sense of family and camaraderie that we all have in this industry, and channeling those efforts through volunteering with SMPS is just such a wonderful gift that you can give to the society, and I really appreciate it, as do the national staff. So again, welcome, and thank you very much for your commitment, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you in the coming months and years. Thanks, Tina.
Well, thank you. Thanks for kicking it off. There are just a couple of other people that I would like to recognize that who are participating. Our chapter delegate at large, Brad Thurman, and Holly Bolton, our chapter delegate. I just wanted to give you guys a chance to say anything if you'd like to before we get into the presentation.
Tina, this is Holly. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay. Just want to reiterate what Kevin said. Thanks to everybody for your involvement at this level, and looking forward to seeing what everybody's going to achieve. I think it's going to be a great year. So that's all I have to say, but welcome.
Thanks, Holly. Appreciate that. How about you, Brad? Are you out there?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, great. Now, I just echo exactly what Kevin and Holly said. Thanks to everybody for their participation. You guys make our jobs much easier in the long run with your participation, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. A couple of things, kind of going a little backwards here, so please bear with me as I get used to this a little bit. I may have about a couple of more people joining us, but right now we have about 11 of you on the call. Many of you may be well familiar with the webinar process, the GoToWebinar, but I did want to make sure that if you have any questions, you know exactly how to go forward. We want to make sure that we address anything that might be on your mind throughout the whole presentation. So you might have already realized that most of you are already on mute. If you have a question, however, there's a way for you simply to go ahead and just raise your hand. If you look at this little, to the left where my mouse is, this little hand, you should have that on your screen. All you need to do is go ahead and press that. And Dan Riley, our staff in education, is helping me with this, so he'll be able to see that, and if he sees that you have a question, he'll go ahead and just kind of throw that out there, and then we'll unmute you. There's also another way for you to put your question out there if you don't want it for everybody. There should be on your screen also a questions box. Just go ahead and type your question. You can either send it for all, or you can send it just to the staff only. Those are the questions that we can either answer in private, or we can answer and raise it up in the presentation overall. I think that that's really about it. This is really very simple. If for some reason, I have a little monitor on my screen, as does Dan. If you have a problem with the mic when you're unmuted, I have a way to look at it on my screen, and I can correct that for you and send you a code for you to dial in, and you might not have actually put in your audio pin. But other than that, I think that it should be pretty simple. We'll go through this. This is really very casual, but we did want to make sure that we had a way to connect all of our committees, go through some general items for you to consider as you're leading your committees this year. So let's get this started then. The purpose of this orientation is clearly to share key information about the society. Again, many of you have already been very involved with the organization. Some of you are new at the type of positions that you're playing, but we still want to go through a few key items that are important for you to know and understand as you're working on the tasks at hand within your committee. We also want to make sure that you absolutely understand the responsibilities of your committees, but also the responsibilities and role that you have as a committee chair and as a committee incoming chair. And then, of course, like I said before, we want to answer any questions you might have. Since this is kind of new for us as well, we want to make sure that at the end of this program, either you can send us your thoughts, or certainly we can kind of open it all up and unmute everybody. But if there are other things that you think that we need to address in the future to help others out, please let us know, because we're really just anticipating certain things that you need to know, things that we want you to know. But any feedback from you is going to be incredibly helpful. So a little bit about the organization. Again, if any of you have ever been to PLS, if you've been to any chapter leader presentations or training, and so many other type of programs that we've done, I cannot imagine that you don't know by now what the SMPS 2020 vision is. But I want to emphasize this just a little bit more because it's important that as leaders of national committees, you understand exactly what these are and the role that it might be playing in what you're going to be doing with your committees, and understanding that even though the 2020 vision was established just over 5 years ago, it is still very relevant and current to everything we do today. What we do today, even every year, we review new initiatives, we have a new president. Everything is still very much in line with that vision and the mission. So I'm going to do a couple of things that I probably shouldn't, as you know, when you're putting a PowerPoint presentation, everyone says you shouldn't read. Well, I'm going to be reading some things to you, even though I know you know how to read, but I'm going to do that just for emphasis. So when you hear it, you remember it, and these are things that, again, you are going to be paying attention to during the year and during all the things you're going to be working on as committee leaders. So our vision, to be the premier professional service firms, or that premier professional service firms, recognize SMPS as their most trusted resource for building business and achieving success. Our mission is to advocate for, to educate, and connect leaders in the building industry. When we're talking about advocate, and again, I know that many of you realize this, but it is worthy of reminding you, advocacy is not about lobbying. Advocacy is about enhancing in the advancement of the profession, and that is who we represent. Again, I know that many of you may be very familiar with this, but I am going to go ahead and repeat it and read this. To advocate, what we are talking about is to educate owners, principals about the importance of marketing, to provide members who want to self-advocate with the tools and knowledge required to do so. There are several of our committees out there that this in particular will be an element of some of the things that you're paying attention to. So I think that some of the things that we might do is make sure that along with the goals and the missions that you have for the year, that we want to make sure that these are in front of you as well. It's always good to have these in front of you, just as we are at board meetings and at SMPS staff meetings. To educate. Identify and chronicle the knowledge, skills, and abilities required for success at all levels in professional services marketing and business development. To provide best-of-class educational opportunities for all levels of SMPS members and AEC employers. To connect, share with the AEC industry and other stakeholders the value and successes that SMPS members achieve through their interaction with the society and each other. Identify all available ways SMPS can connect with members and to create and enhance opportunities for members at all levels to communicate. Again, everything that we're talking about with the AEC vision are all elements every one of you on your task forces and your committees are a part of and can help us achieve all of these different things. Now, a couple of things that we're working on, and every year, if you're not already aware of this, we have a strategic planning session with the board of directors and senior staff. And the president has various initiatives for the year ahead while we're still trying to work on other achievements from the past year. But I did want to make sure that you were aware of a couple of initiatives that Frank Lippert has put forward. In one of those, clearly is certification. He feels very strongly about this, and he may have shared this already with some of you in other messages, and he's really great at blogging. But what he really wants to make sure is that we are raising the bar on certification, and clearly, as it says here, elevating the awareness of the program. He's working with staff and others and making sure that we're doing everything we can to make this a viable, well-respected program. And of course, continually enhancing the certification program. Our certification committee always has a lot of work to do. It's amazing, and you're going to be very much a part of this. Client and peer organizations, reaching out to them and exploring the value-added opportunities and working with clients and peer organizations to define success in these relationships and determining meaningful outcomes for all parties involved. Just important that all of you are aware of these are things that they're working on at the board, and there may be elements, again, for all of you just to consider when you're having discussions and, you know, how this might be meaningful to what you're doing overall. Okay, so that's a little bit about SMPS National, the organization, and again, I think a lot of these things are not very new to you. So we're going to just talk about committees overall. We're going to talk about committees in general. We're going to talk about the mission and goals that each one of you have in your committees. And we're going to talk about some things that, you know, we really need you to do and some things that you need to consider that, you know, you might not have in the past. So throughout this whole presentation, you'll see a few little cartoon strips here. I hope no one takes offense. Some of them are going to be a little interesting, but there's a lot of humor out there on committees. So we're going to go ahead and go forward. There's a couple of committee types. And again, I think that any of you who have already worked as a chapter leader or who have been chapter leaders may be well aware of this. A standing committee is designed to undertake long-term assignments and to carry out the work of the association. Typically, most of you, except for only one committee right now, which is the Blueprints Task Force, is a standing committee. To further define a standing committee, these are typically committees that are long-term. They probably have been present for, you know, anywhere 5 to 10 years because there is a constant need for the work of that particular committee. Doesn't mean that it will never end, but those are pretty much the type of membership committees or education committees and things like that. But it's a long-term job that is expected of you, and so it's considered a standing committee. A task force, ad hoc special interest, designed to address a specific issue with resulting recommendations, usually a short-term duration. Again, I know many of you are very familiar with this, but a board or a group might have a very specific item that needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed by a group of individuals, a group of volunteers. It's very specific, and there is a time frame associated with it. But the board doesn't have the time to do it. The staff doesn't. It's not maybe appropriate for the staff to do it. So that's where the task force comes in. And I think we only have one of those right now. The current SMPS National Committees, there are several awards and recognition type of committees. There's the MCA Marketing Communications Awards, MAA Marketing Achievement Awards, and the Striving for Excellence Committee. And that includes also the Chapter President of the Year. Just in case not all of you aren't familiar with the structure of that, Striving for Excellence is the overall umbrella. That is headed up by a chair and an incoming chair. But the Chapter President of the Year is still a separate group, and it has its own chair, who is the current winner of the Chapter President of the Year award, and then staff working with them as well, and when we have judges who look at those submittals. But that's the structure of Striving for Excellence. And this year we also have, actually last year, when Carolyn Ferguson was president, Blueprints Task Force was put into place. The Blueprints Task Force was originally called the Career Pathways Group. We have the Business Development Institute, we have the Certification Committee, the National Conference Committee, Fellows Committee, which is brand new, PLS, the President's Leadership Symposium Committee, and the Technology Committee. You'll see on this list there are several items that are a few committees, that have an asterisk. Those are the committees that we include in the call for volunteers. Every year, typically around mid-June, we put out a call to volunteers on our website, by email, through connections to ask for individuals who are interested in serving on those committees. Not all committees are structured the same, and that is why not all committees are out on the call for volunteers. And we'll go through that just a little bit more. But I think it's important as chairs and as incoming chairs, you understand the process. Dano, do we have any questions out there? Dan? Well, let's go forward.
Sorry, no. Marion said your voice was going in and out. But
okay.
But we're good.
I'm going to put my speaker just a little bit closer. Okay. So the criteria, first of all, for even becoming a part of a committee, and there are exceptions sometimes, but overall, to be a part of a committee or a member of a committee, you must be a member for 5 years, and we ask that you have at least 2 years experience serving on a chapter board of directors. You should not be committed to serve as a chapter leader during the program year. And the exception to that is the chapter past president. And the exception of chapter past president is typically this is a position where they're not asked to do as much or to give as much time to the chapter. So SMPS National doesn't feel we're taken away from the efforts and the support of the chapter. And I want all of you to understand that that's where a lot of this is coming from, especially with the 2 years experience serving on a chapter board of directors. When the criteria was established, it was established some time ago. Cheryl Mayback and Karen Courtney was very much a part of this. And when the board was talking about it, it was really important that individuals knew and chapters knew that we want to first get people to really volunteer at a chapter and local levels. It was very much a part of that process of overall leadership. So you'll kind of see this throughout overall, just in case you were wondering why that criteria was there. So let's start talking about mission and goals. So I thought my little comic strip here was apropos. One of the things that, of course, every single one of you need to know is that you have a specific mission, but what is it exactly that is asked of you? What is it that you need to do? What we're going to do from this point on is go through all of the different committees that we have in the missions that are associated with your current committee. And I'm going to try to not make this so long, but there are, of course, a lot of your committees out there. But one of the things that we want to do as well, and Kevin mentioned this before, is communication and cross-communication. I really think it's a great idea that all of you know what one another are doing, in that it's kind of we have this 2020 vision, we have these goals, we have the strategic plan, but now let's get the committees understanding what one another do. We might even find that you might be doing something that complements another committee's efforts. So at least right now, we want to introduce you to what some of those items are. As we go forward, and I can't imagine that all of you aren't already familiar with this document in front of you. This is simply the Technology Committee's group description and mission. And every single task force and every single committee has one of these. The president, well, actually the executive team at this point does this, but all of the committee missions are reviewed. The goals are established for the upcoming year ahead, and then it is signed off by that president for that program year and our CEO, Ron Worth. As you can see here, the mission statement, the goals for 2011 and 12 are clearly defined. Now, some committees have many more goals. Some committees only have one or two. If you ever find that you're in a position, especially as a committee chair, that it's a little ambiguous or you're not quite clear what that is, that's one of the things that you absolutely need to talk to your staff liaison. You need to talk to your board liaison and make sure that you have clarification and understand what exactly is expected of you. So we're going to start with the BDI committee and their mission statement. The current chair, and I don't think she's on the call today, but chair is Diana Sodano. The incoming chair is Rob Cullison. Staff liaison is Dan Riley. And every committee and task force will always have a board liaison as well, and that's Carolyn Ferguson for BDI. The mission statement is to provide the premier forums for educating and fostering community among business development professionals and others who want to improve their sales skills. But what I want to do here, and let's see how well I can do this. I want to make sure that you also see the goals of the committee as well. So if you look for the goals for 2011-12, just right here, they're developing community building, networking, and knowledge sharing opportunities targeted at professionals engaged in business development at the national, regional, and chapter level. To assist the SMPS National staff with continued development of SMPS National business development and education and content. Now, I think what I would like to do, Mark, can you hear me? Okay. Is there anything that you would like to add in terms of the goals or what the VDI committee is working on?
No, I think you covered it quite well. Dan is the liaison for that committee.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. You used to be the liaison. So, Dan, is there anything else that you would like to add?
I believe the goals are carrying over this year. They're just going to expand and follow through with the articles.
So again, one of the reasons why we're sharing all this information for you is just to make sure that you have a sense of what everyone is working on. And we're going to be going over the specific roles of the chair, the incoming chair, the staff liaison, and even the board liaison and all of these. But again, this will just give you some familiarity with all the groups that are out there right now.
Tina, we do have a question about committee commitment from Andrew.
From Andrew? Okay,
Yeah,
hold on. Andrew, I'm going to unmute you. Hold on just a second. Okay. Andrew, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's your question?
Okay. One of your bullets on the commitment slide was that you should not be committed to a board during your program year. So I wanted
That's
to
right.
clarify what is. Can you not hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. So my question
what you're
is, what is
referring to?
considered my program year?
Okay.
It's the question I typed in. Yeah.
Okay, so this is what you're talking about. Should not be committed to serve as a chapter leader during the program year. And again, there are exceptions, Andrew. So the program year is so for example, you are going to be the chair of PLS. This year NOLA is, but your program year starts September 1, 2012.
Right.
Right, as the chair, and as a member, obviously this is relevant as well. But Andrew, do you have a role in your chapter right now?
Yes, I'm currently the director of programs.
Right.
And
now, this is one of those
my term ends on August 31st.
Okay, and this is one of those things where all committees are not the same, and especially awards committees are not the same because many of the members are judges. With PLS, most of the time that you're going to be spending is in a very specific time of year. So the board, the people who approve this in the selection, they look at the time frame that you're really going to be dedicated to working on that committee and seeing if you are doing anything with the chapter, is that really going to burden the chapter or burden the person who is going to be serving as that committee leader. So does that answer your question?
It kind of keeps it a little fuzzy, but that's okay.
Well, no, honestly, is there something else that that I'm not covering?
Well, I just didn't know if it was a hard and fast rule because I think there is a level of involvement throughout the year. It's not just, just before the PLS event. So would it make sense to not be on the board and not have or at least not have a very a high level of commitment on the chapter board?
Yeah, that it's actually a really good question, Andrew. And you're right. It's not a hard and fast rule. Part of it is maybe the selection from the very beginning, there might be some misunderstanding. And if ever we're asking you to serve in a national role and you feel like, I just don't know if I can balance it, I want to do this, or, what you want to do most, then we need to work with you and make sure that you're not spending a crazy amount of time doing all this work for the chapter and national at the same time. And honestly, Andrew, that might be something that we need to discuss. And if you're a director of, I'm sorry, is it programs, Andrew, that you said?
Yes, I'm director of programs, but that term ends this August.
Right. And so are you expected to
So
serve
I had planned on,
go ahead.
I was planning to rerun for another board position, but I mean, PLS is definitely going to take priority, so I'll have that discussion with my board.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you asked that question, and we can talk about that a little bit more offline. I just want to make sure that we are clear that more than anything, this is about, there are exceptions. It's not always, but there is more work than just a specific time frame. So let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit more after this. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. Andrew, I'm going to go ahead and put you on mute now. Okay, so I hope I answered his question. Okay, so I think I lost my place here. I'm sorry. So with the certification committee, very, very simple mission statement: to improve the stature and status of professional services marketers. And I hope I'm saying these names correctly, but the chair is Judy Rechak. The incoming chair is Shauna Haley. Staff liaison is Kevin Doyle, and our board liaison is Brad Thurman. Certification is always a very key component to what we're working on, a key committee, and there's obviously a great deal of emphasis put on that this year. Again, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you the goals for the certification committee. For 2011 and 12. Sometimes, some of you have been on a committee for a while, and you may see that the goals are the same from year to year. You may see subtle differences, or you may see a lot of differences. And I just want to make sure that all of you know these are reviewed every year, and sometimes it just doesn't need to be changed. This is simply what needs to be achieved, and it's very much in line with the strategies for the year and the mission and the vision of the society. So the goals for 11-12 for the certification committee is to communicate the value of certification to employers and leaders of the industry, always very important, to communicate the value of certification through publicity, including the development of CPSM Day, the 2012 Build Business and San Francisco, to update and improve the item writing database, always a lot of work involved in that, and to increase the number of candidates applying for the CPSM designation. We are just about I can't remember exactly the number, but we are just under 800 CPSMs right now. And there's a lot of work being done to bringing new CPSMs and to keep those individuals who have the CPSMs, keep them going on and wanting to keep that designation. Overall, I think that if you have seen CR dashboards, you see that the growth of CPSMs every year has gone up and up and up. It hasn't decreased from one year to the other. So the team is doing a lot of work, and the program overall is absolutely getting some amazing recognition. Okay, so let's go back. The conference committee. The conference committee is definitely, hello?
Sorry, this is Dan. Before we leave certification, Myrna had a question regarding credits. She typed that in the box.
All right, Myrna. Let me unmute Myrna. Okay,
Hello?
Myrna, you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Hello, I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. I was just curious about just sort of generally volunteering and at the national level and how that affects CPSM units. Can you acquire CPSM units when you volunteer at the national level?
For the volunteer time?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Actually, I don't think that there are CEUs for that, but maybe, I don't know if Kevin Doyle is on, or if Mark is out there and can talk to that.
Hey Tina, it's Mark. Yeah, there are no credits for committee service or for like chapter volunteer service, serving on chapter boards and things like that.
There isn't.
No,
okay.
Honestly, Myrna, the CEUs are directly related to what can be found in each one of the domains. And that's exactly how they define whether or not it warrants any type of credit.
Okay. All right. I just need to understand. It's just that I'm spending a lot more time on national stuff.
Right.
And because of that, I need to get CPSM CEUs, which I'm not getting because I'm not participating so much on the local stuff, because our programs have shifted towards just marketing, which is, our personal issue. And, I'm a senior leader, so I don't really know how to do some of that basic stuff. So I haven't been attending many of the local chapter events, which means that I'm compromised with my CEUs. So that's the reason I'm asking all these questions. So it's a dilemma, because do I go to something that I don't need to go just to get CEU units, or I want to go where I can learn something or be a benefit to me. And right now they aren't, because they've moved only into a marketing track, and it's pretty junior level, coordinator level. So for me, I'm in a dilemma trying to acquire my CEUs, and that's why I asked the question. So
it's a good question. Honestly, Myrna, it really is, and you're not the first to ask that. I think it's one of those things that we should, it's an opportunity to discuss and, make sure that we can answer your questions well. I have no idea what an ultimate result would be, if something could be changed, but I think it's definitely worthy of the question and discussion. But I absolutely understand how that works. And there are a lot of organizations out there. They do it both ways. I don't know if you have certification with another association, Myrna, but they all have their own ways of how to qualify CEUs. Sometimes the volunteer time that they give is more if you have contributed or if you've written and that type of thing.
Right.
But I absolutely understand what you're saying.
Okay.
And it can be all these things can be discussed.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so conference. The conference committee is definitely one of those committees that's structured just a little bit differently. And the qualification, who serves on the committee is a little bit different as well. Even the year in which we get volunteers for this committee. So I'm going to just go over briefly on the conference committee, but then I'm going to ask Mark Della Pietra, who's the new staff liaison for this, to maybe discuss that just a little bit, if you don't mind, Mark. Right now we have 2 co-chairs, and that's how this always works. We have Myrna Esther Wagner, CPSM, and we have Beth Harris, CPSM. The staff liaison is Mark Della Pietra, who is our Vice President of Education, and the board liaison is Frank Lippert. The president is always the board liaison. So, Mark, do you have anything that you can add in terms of the structure of the conference committee and the time that we seek volunteers for this group and how those co-chairs are selected?
The only thing I'll add is this is kind of a longer commitment than a lot of the other committees. Usually it gets formed about 20 months in advance of the conference. So the way it falls, as Berna was just talking about, it's a big commitment, especially for those co-chairs. We additional people involved in the conference on programs and gala and other things get involved as we get closer to the programs as needs arise. But as far as the committee goes, it's just from the that time when the president-elect forms that committee.
Okay, well, thank you. I just want to make sure that all of you had an understanding of that, and that this is one of those committees that does not go out for the call for volunteers. And again, based on the needs and what's going on, it's kind of mixed up just a little bit. The selection right here is clearly defined on the committee description and mission for 2011 and 12, or for every year, of course. And the committee leaders and members are not selected through the National Call for Volunteers. They are appointed by the SMPS president, whose term coincides with the conference. Blueprints Task Force. The task force was established last year. We reviewed it again this year with the executive committee to see if it needed to continue on. They've been doing some really great work. The current chair is Chris Rickman. Incoming chair is not applicable because, again, this is a task force, and there is an expected end date to the work that they have at hand. The staff liaison is Lisa Bowman, and the board liaison is Brad Thurman. Lisa, is there anything that you can add to the work of the blueprints and what their goals are?
They just actually finished up the fantastic blueprints product, which we released at the conference in August. And I think right now we're researching the next assignment for this group, and I don't think that's been determined yet.
Great, thank you. The Fellows Committee. The Fellows Committee is brand new. Paula Ryan got this started, and it was blessed by the board this year, and it's going to be a really very interesting committee for this group of people to work with. This is actually another committee that doesn't go out on the call for volunteers, because there's a very specific criteria for who can serve in this. And of course, that will be fellows. So the chair has not yet been determined. It's still a very brand new committee. They're working on that, as well as, of course, the incoming chair. The staff liaison for this group is Mark Della Pietra, and the board liaison is Paula Ryan as the fellows delegate. And there really has been a lot of emphasis on supporting the fellows and really working with them to support national as well. Their mission statement: to engage and leverage the expertise, wisdom, and talent of SMPS fellows, our most senior leaders, to support and enhance activities at the chapter, regional, and national levels, as well as to encourage mentoring relationships. We have some amazing individuals in this group, and this is an effort to really reach out to them and to take advantage of, obviously, of everything they've just listed here, their expertise, their wisdom, their experiences, and really make it beneficial for all parties involved, for the organization and for the individuals themselves, and keep them engaged. The Marketing Achievement Award Committee. This is a very unique committee as well. This is a recognition committee. Al Potter, you'll see, is the co-chair, because Al Potter was the Marketing Achievement Award winner this year. The co-chair is also Carolyn Ferguson, FSMPS CPSM. Carolyn Ferguson is the immediate past president. According to our policies and procedures and our minutes, it was determined that the immediate past president will always serve as the co-chair with the winning, with the individual who won for this overall group. And so this is a very interesting committee. Really, they lead the effort. Most of anyone who's involved in this group, they're primarily judges, and that's what they do. They work with Al Potter. They look at their submittals, and it's usually just a specific time that they're working on this effort. The mission statement hasn't changed since I have been here. This is to salute professionals whose achievements and lasting contributions to the field are exemplary. It's a pretty simple, but it is a different group. MCA committee is also the same type of structure. There was a time, and I'm going to just talk about this a little bit, where the MCA committee was much larger. And I mention this because recently I've been getting some questions on this when people really want to be a part of the MCA committee. It used to be on the call for volunteers, but just a couple of years ago it changed. There's always a need for a lot of judges to review all of those submittals for the marketing communications pieces, but the actual people in putting it together, working with Molly DeLierta, it wasn't necessary to have as large of a group. So currently the chair is Christine King, and the staff liaison is Molly DeLierta. The board liaison is Barbara Schuck. We have 2 incoming chairs, so there'll be co-chairs for the coming year, and that's Bernice Bako and Michael McCann. So this is always a great group, and there's a lot of work that these guys do. And again, if you know of anyone that's interested in serving as a judge, I know that Molly is always welcoming new individuals or people who are willing to participate in this, and they always need great people and talent to look at all the different submissions. But again, the mission statement in front of us. The MCA Awards program is a long-standing tradition of SMPS that provides professional service firms the opportunity to showcase their best marketing efforts each year. The program recognizes outstanding communications vehicles created by both members and non-members or consultants on their behalf. I don't think that this has changed in several years either, and there's a lot of work for this group to do, but this is an amazing program. I'm going to go through some of these other slides a little bit more quickly because there's some other information just on committee structure and your roles I want to talk about. But I think you kind of get a sense of what's going on here, and I also want to make sure that all of you understand that your mission and goals, if you want to look at others, I can share that with you. All the mission and goals are posted on each one of your committees in the My SMPS Community Library. Each of you have one established. So if there's something that I'm not showing here or we haven't discussed, it's there, and you can always ask and call us with any more details or questions that you might have regarding any of the goals. The PLS committee, I guess there's a lot of different kind of committees because this is another one of those as well. The PLS committee, this is the chapter President's Leadership Symposium. The current chair is Noah Nasser. Incoming is Andrew Weinberg. Staff liaison is myself, Tina Myers. Board liaison, we have 2. We always have the chapter delegate and the president that is going to be serving as president in those the corresponding year of those chapter presidents, and that's Kevin Hebblethwaite for this group. The mission statement is very, very simple: to engage incoming chapter presidents with knowledge, tools, insight to lead strong chapters. I am going to show you just one thing on this because this is something that is asked often, and people want to know exactly how this is structured and how individuals are selected, and I want to share that with you. The PLS committee consists of the past chair, the current chair, the incoming chair, the 2 board liaisons, and staff that were involved. And it's actually, I'm the liaison, but Mary Cruz works very closely, and Dan Riley works very closely with this group as well. The selection process, and I know you have this right in front of you, but I'll go ahead and I'll read it. The PLS incoming chair shall be appointed by the current SMPS National President-elect serving their corresponding PLS class. And of course, this individual is working with others and the current PLS team to really look at the right person to come in. So let me outline the criteria. They need to have served as an SMPS chapter president 3 or more years before the PLS program year. They need to have served as an SMPS National Committee volunteer. They need to be employed and or experienced in the AEC industry. Participation in PLS is supported by their current employer. They possess superior leadership and presentation skills. Candidates shall submit national volunteer application to Tina Meyer. So that's going to be a little bit new this year. We didn't do that last year. But this is something that the committee really thought about. And this is one of those committees when they're looking at selection, the right fit is so important because you have 3 key individuals whose personalities need to balance off of one another, and it's a high energy program, and so all of these things are looked at. But this is an amazing group of people. We always get people who are interested, and if you ever have questions or people come to you asking you, well, how can I be a part of this? This is really what you need to know. So if you have any other questions on that, happy to answer them. It's available for any of you to review if you'd like, and I just want to make sure that all of you were aware of it. Oh, excuse me. Striving for Excellence, the CPY Committee. Again, this is another awards group. I'm the liaison for this. Holly Bolton, as the chapter delegate, is the board liaison. Marion Thatch is the SFE chair, and the SFE incoming chair is Pat Bellotto. The chapter president of the year chair is Allison Carney, as she was the winner this year. I just want to give you a sense of the structure for this a little bit as well. I told you earlier the Striving for Excellence is the overall umbrella for this. We have pretty much the chair, the incoming chair, and the past chair as the primary committee members along with the liaisons. And all the other individuals, and we often have well more over 20, are those individuals who judge all the different submittals. So it's a very specific time frame that they work with us, and they're grouped into the type of submittals that they're actually need to review. So it's primarily still a small committee group itself that actually work on the program and provide feedback for, the criteria and different changes. And all the other individuals are primarily judges. Technology Committee is a newer committee for us as well. Michelle Yates, APR CPSM, is the chair. The incoming chair is Dana Galvin. Staff liaison is Michelle Santiago, and the board liaison is Barbara Schack. This is a committee that it's actually, they're doing a lot of great work as well, but their mission statement, obviously, to keep abreast of and inform membership of new and current technologies that can be used to build business and enhance careers. Yes.
Michelle, can you unmute Michelle Santiago? They had made some changes to the goals for that committee, and she wanted to discuss those.
I can. Hold on just a second. Okay, Michelle, go ahead.
We just we wanted to tighten up the goals a little bit based on what we discussed doing on our last call at the end of October. We wanted to go with researching and developing consistent articles on technology-related topics for SMPS publications like The Marketer and Connections. And our second goal was to engage members in technology-related discussions through mysmps.org and at SMPS Tech. And I can send you that, but we just wanted to see if we could tighten that up a little bit more than what we initially started with.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can go ahead and give it, we can take care of that.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, that was it. If anybody has any suggestions on topics for us, feel free to let Michelle Yates or myself or Barbara know.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now we're going to talk about roles a little bit, and I think that I'd like to spend a little bit of time on this. It's 2:48, so we have about 12 minutes to go, and I promise I will not I won't go overtime on this, but there are some important things that we need to discuss. Again, my little cartoon here, I didn't say anything during the meeting, but I don't agree with the rest of the committee on this issue. So here's a thought on this. As committee leaders, the chairs and incoming chairs, it is important that everyone on your team is engaged or they're involved. If they're not saying anything or if you're not saying anything, pretty much what that means is that you've agreed with what everyone is saying out there, and maybe you don't. So as leaders of these groups and these task forces, just please make sure you're finding a way to facilitate good, meaningful discussion. And if we find that there are individuals that, they're just not participating, they're not part of it, we probably need to, address if they need to be, a part of the team, if they're feeling comfortable, and that's a part of what we want to do too. We want to make sure that there's a certain ease about being a part of that whole team and really feeling that there is a contribution or that they've contributed. So let's go over some of the basic roles, and by no means is this an exhaustive role, but this is an overall general understanding of what your responsibilities are. So as a committee chair, your basic function, you need to make sure that you are consistent with the Society's policy and strategic plan. That's one of the reasons why I put that up there from the very beginning, to make sure that you're well aware of it and you're not trying to work or bring the committee that is very much different than what the board and what the society is working on overall and what our strategic plan is. The committee chair guides the committee in its work as outlined by the mission and goals approved by the board at the beginning of each program year. And again, it's important, and we really need to be a little bit more, we're trying to be better about making sure that that information is available to you as quickly as possible. And we are looking for ideas from you, but you need to take a look at that mission and the goals that are provided to you. And if you have any questions about those, that's your time to speak up. If it's a little bit ambiguous, you're not quite sure what it is that you're supposed to be doing, or maybe you even think that you don't have resources available to you to make it happen, this is the time to talk to your staff liaison and your board liaison to really make sure that it's clearly understood. And if you have any questions about how to achieve that, again, that's a part of the conversation that you need to have. The role of the committee incoming chair. Of course, you're going to be working closely with the chair to keep the committee running smoothly. You need to prepare fully to assume the chair in the year to follow. You need to be just as in tune with what the chair is doing and how they're facilitating the sessions. If a chair cannot make a meeting, you should be the person who is going to lead up and facilitate that meeting as well. And I also want to make sure that all of you understand that as the committee chair, you are the person responsible to lead that meeting. It is not the staff liaison. It is not the board liaison. It is you. So, we're going to go over a couple of the different tools and agendas and things like that, but I want to make sure that you absolutely understand that this is your meeting and you're the one who needs to head it up and set the pace for it. The staff liaison is here to serve as an informed resource person to the committee. The staff liaison is selected by our CEO, and we are aligned with the committees that we are pretty much most associated and close with the jobs that we have on hand, and of course our own expertise. So we are a great resource for you, and we want you to count on us to really help you through everything that committee needs to achieve. And of course, they work with the chair to ensure that all the committee work is consistent with the society's goals and objectives, as is the board liaison as well. The board liaison represents the board interest to the committee and the committee interest to the board. Understand, the board member does not ever do the work of the committee. They're not there to direct exactly what you do. They are there to be as a resource, to listen, and if anything is a little off than what the board has asked the committee or the task force to do, that is their opportunity to say, you know what, guys, this is not what we had talked about. It's turning around. And then, of course, if as a committee or a committee leader, you have a question and you think like, you know what, this isn't really working, or can you go back to the board and ask them this or present this, that's their role. And so sometimes that might not be very clear, but that's exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Sometimes the board will be on the call. They're not always on the call. Again, depending on the committee or the needs of that specific committee, but they are always available for you by email, by call, or a specific request, and they are happy to do so. So let's talk about committee responsibilities. Okay, again, my little cartoon does have something to say here. When you're looking at what you need to do in the overall conversation, now, my little cartoon talks about they're all over the place, so they just decided to have this, pumpkin as it is. But also, a little thing that I just wanted to note is sometimes working through a program or a task or trying to come up with, a way to resolve something, sometimes simplicity is really the best way to go, and you don't always have to change things up just for the sake of changing things up. Committees in general, understand that you serve at the pleasure of the board. the board approves every mission, every set of goals, just that, like we went over, for every one of you and every one of our task forces and committees. And we ask you that you take that seriously and you really understand what the board is asking of you. It is your responsibility to act in good faith in the best interest of the society, and that is called duty of care. The committees in general help get the work done. There's a lot of things that are on the plate of the society, and there are not that many staff members. We have a board who's very busy, and they have to be thinking strategically, and committees really do help us get that work done, and you're incredibly important. The committees also help us identify potential leaders of the organization going forward, future chairs and other individuals who can play a key role in the organization. And of course, they serve as a way to segment and serve the interests of subgroups and members. We already have that with certainly our fellows groups, certification, and other groups as well. What committees must do and always pay attention to: as members, you must publicly disclose any actual or perceived conflicts of interest and not vote on such committee matters. You must always refrain from any discussions or activities that are in violation of antitrust laws. So your staff liaison or your board liaison, if they ever hear that there is kind of an odd conversation going on there, and if for some reason as a chair you're not, there wasn't a red flag, these are things that your liaisons are going to say, you know what, this is something we shouldn't talk about, this is not appropriate, or it seems like there's a conflict of interest here if you haven't self-identified it, and then that matter needs to be addressed right then and right there. And I can't go into too much of this because I don't have so much time, but if any of you are looking for examples of what some of this might mean, I'm more than happy to send them to you. What you may not do: you may not commit to expenditures of funds, you may not negotiate contracts, and you may not express opinions or represent positions in the name of the society unless specifically authorized by the board. You are not officers of the organization, and this is the sole responsibility of the board, the chief executive officer, on behalf of SMPS and staff who are given that authority. So let's just talk about a little bit more about meetings and more. So most of you have already had some meetings, or we're already into the program year. It started September 1st, and you already have your routine. Some of them are a little bit different based on the type of committees that you have. But typically these are going to be conducted by conference calls, sometimes go-to-meeting, whatever the needs are. You may not need a go-to-meeting, just a regular conference call is fine. Make sure that they're, even if they're not scheduled monthly, just make sure that all your committee members are well informed of what that time set is for the year. I'm assuming that all of you already have that set. It's pretty much standard, but if something changes up, just make sure that every member of the team absolutely understands what those times are, because they are expected to be a part of that, and they don't need any surprises if anything has changed. But of course, your staff liaison is going to work with you on all of that. Attendance and active participation at meetings is expected. If you're finding that you have members of your team that are just not being, they're not a part of what you're trying to accomplish, they're not going to the meetings, you need to address it. You need to talk to us about it as well. Maybe this is something that they don't have time for, but they don't want to feel bad and say, you know what, I might not be able to do this. That's perfectly okay. Sometimes people have, there's quite a lot on all of our plates, and if we know ahead of time that maybe we need to make a replacement, that's fine, and they'll have opportunities in the future as well to participate. Just because they can't do it now doesn't mean they can't do it in the future. Notice the meetings, materials, agenda, all of these things are pretty standard, but it's always worth noting that you should have these, make sure that they're prepared ahead of the meeting, make sure your group has them beforehand so they can be prepared to make sure that they can participate fully in the meeting. And of course, start and end your meetings on time, just a matter of courtesy. Committee reports. Okay, we have about just a minute. I only have a couple more slides, I promise. But for committee reports, this is something that we haven't been so diligent on, but we will be from now on. The board really wants to see what is going on, and this just makes a consistent way for all of you to report back. So the form is available in each of the communities for our committees and our task forces. If you can't find it, I'm happy to send you one. The chair is responsible for preparing this report. It's an interactive PDF. If for some reason it's not working, let me know, and I'll make sure you have exactly what you need. Your staff liaison should be the one who's reminding you exactly when the report is due and how much time that you need. So we're going to be refining this process a little bit more. But just so you know, the reports are typically due winter, spring, summer, and fall. The board has face-to-face meetings in January typically, April during the PLS meeting, June, that's our summer retreat, and fall, which is the year-end, or it's actually the first face-to-face meeting, but you're going to be preparing your year-end report. So we'll give you plenty of opportunity to make sure that you have time to prepare it, to hand it in, and we're not looking for dissertations, and the form is really very easy to navigate, clear questions, but we ask that all of you prepare that in a timely manner, and we will work with each and every one of you on that. The tools and resources that are available to you. All of you should be by now well aware of my SMPS. You have a community that was created for you to save documents in, to have conversations. And, you know, I think you know what those tools are there. Make sure that you're really using it. It's a great place for all of our committees, just like we do with our chapters, to make sure that everything that they need, their agendas, their documents, presentations, they're all right there in the library for your use and ease. And you only, as a committee member, other than your liaisons, have access to that community. And of course, your national staff liaison and your board liaisons are resources as well. Whatever you need, if you need documents to be covered, you have questions, you need, you're really busy, you just need that support, that is what we are here and to help you with. Your board liaison is there to answer questions or, about where you're going and making sure that you're on track. And of course, the conference services, conference calls, go-to-meeting, webinar, all of these things are available for you to use whenever you need them for your committee purposes. Okay, so it's 3:01 according to my clock. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unmute everyone at this point. Let's see how this works. And see if there's any questions that you have. Okay, hold on.
I can cover the conference better than I can cover the
Okay, let's see.
Right.
Does anyone have any questions? I've unmuted most all of you.
But I need to, get that in my head so that I can start working on that. Okay, so that's good. The other thing I wanted to chat with you about.
Okay.
Yeah, well, these slides.
Ian, are there any?
It left me, so I'll have to talk to you again.
I'm going to mute all. I'm sorry. There was just a lot of speaking in the background. I didn't know who it was. So can you either raise your hand who just started asking the question or type that question in your chat so I can go ahead and unmute you specifically?
Tina, this is Dan. We've been asked, will these slides be available along with all the committee outlines and goals?
Yes. Well, this presentation is being recorded. As soon as we're done, it'll be saved, and we're going to put it on all of your communities to have access. And I can absolutely make all the goals I'm going to put them all in one document and have them available to you too, and that will be put in your communities as well. Were there any other questions, Dan?
I see no questions or no hands up at this moment.
Okay. Well, then let me end it on this one note. And again, this is a brand new presentation, and I hope I've covered what you really need to know, and this is beneficial. But I couldn't find a better way to end this than this quote from Albert Schweitzer. I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I know, the only ones among you who will be really happy are those who have sought and found how to serve. All I can say is I hope that all of you are really happy. I know that we are thrilled to have all of you involved and so engaged in the manner that you are. You make a difference to this organization, and we could not accomplish what we need to accomplish and what we have without each and every one of you. So for that, I want to say thank you for participating and for being a part of this amazing organization. You mean a lot to us. So thank you. That ends our meeting. Goodbye, everybody.